Hello, everyone. We live in a world where sharing has become second nature. We share our thoughts, our meals, our triumphs, our failures, and everything in between. Social media platforms urge us to be open, to be authentic, to share our lives in real time, and to connect with others through vulnerability. But here's a truth that might surprise you: not everything should be shared, and not everyone should be given access to your personal life. In a world that constantly demands more from us, whether it's our time, energy, or emotions, boundaries are often the unsung heroes that protect our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. But what exactly are boundaries, and why are they so important? Boundaries are not just lines we draw in the sand. They are the invisible rules we set to protect ourselves, to ensure we preserve our personal space, and to create environments where we can be our authentic selves. At their core, boundaries are about respect for ourselves and respect for others. They are a declaration of what we will tolerate and what we won't tolerate, and what we won't, and they are a reflection of our values, needs, and desires. When we set boundaries, we create a foundation for healthy relationships, whether they're with family, friends, colleagues, or even with ourselves. Without boundaries, we risk losing ourselves in the expectations and demands of others. But with boundaries, we gain the freedom to prioritize our needs, maintain our peace, and nurture our mental and emotional health. One of the most fundamental reasons we need boundaries is because they help us cultivate self-respect. Too often, we neglect ourselves in the name of pleasing others. We say yes when we want to say no. We give more than we have to offer. And we stretch ourselves thin to meet the needs of everyone around us. But when we constantly put others' needs before our own, we undermine our own sense of self-worth. Setting clear boundaries is a way to say to ourselves, I matter. My time, my energy, my emotions, and my well-being are important. Boundaries are not selfish. They are an act of self-care. By creating boundaries, we honor ourselves and our limits. We allow ourselves the space to rest, recharge, and show up as the best version of ourselves. Without boundaries, we can quickly find ourselves overwhelmed, burned out, and resentful. But with them, we create an environment where we can thrive. Boundaries are essential in every relationship, whether with family, friends, coworkers, or romantic partners. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, and that respect is often expressed through boundaries. When we set boundaries in our relationships, we communicate to others what is acceptable and what is not. For example, if someone continually takes advantage of our time or makes hurtful comments, setting a boundary can help stop that behavior and protect our emotional well-being. At the same time, boundaries help us protect our energy. In any relationship, it's important to know when to step back and recharge. Constantly being available to others can drain us, leaving us with little left to give. Boundaries help us preserve our energy so that we can be present for the people who truly matter and for the activities that bring us joy and fulfillment. Without boundaries, we risk losing ourselves in the roles we play for others, whether as a caregiver, friend, or colleague. Boundaries help us reclaim our individuality and remind us that we are not defined by our relationships, but rather by our unique qualities and values. While setting boundaries is essential, it's not always easy. Many of us were not taught how to set healthy boundaries, and as a result, we might feel guilty or uncomfortable when we try to establish them. We might worry about disappointing others or facing conflict. This is especially true if we've been conditioned to prioritize others' needs above our own, or if we've experienced relationships where boundaries were not respected. However, it's important to recognize that setting boundaries is not an act of rejection or aggression. It's an act of self-respect. Setting a boundary is not about pushing others away. It's about creating the space to honor our own needs. When we struggle with setting boundaries, it's often because we fear judgment, rejection, or conflict. But the reality is that healthy boundaries strengthen relationships, even if they initially cause discomfort. When we set boundaries, we teach others how to treat us, and we create an environment where respect, trust, and understanding can flourish. One of the most powerful boundary setting tools we have is the word no. No is not a negative word. It's a word that allows us to take back control over our time, energy, and emotional well-being. Learning to say no is one of the most important skills we can develop. By saying no, we are saying yes to ourselves and to the things that truly matter. Saying no does not make us selfish or unkind. It simply means we are protecting our time, our energy, and our values. It's important to recognize that saying no doesn't require an explanation. We don't owe anyone an elaborate reason for why we can't fulfill a request. Our time and energy are valuable, and it's perfectly okay to protect them. Saying no also doesn't mean we are abandoning others. In fact, by setting boundaries, we ensure that when we do say yes, it comes from a place of genuine desire and willingness, not obligation or resentment. Boundaries are not something we set once and forget about. They require ongoing maintenance and reassessment. As our lives change and our relationships evolve, our boundaries may need to shift as well. What felt right at one point in time may no longer serve us as we grow and change. This is why boundary setting is an ongoing practice. Sometimes we might need to reevaluate our boundaries if we're feeling drained, overwhelmed, or disconnected. We might need to reassess if we're being too flexible or too rigid with our boundaries. This self-awareness allows us to adjust our boundaries as needed, ensuring that we are always prioritizing our well-being. In addition, it's important to recognize that boundaries are not just about protecting ourselves from others, they are also about being aware of how we treat others. Setting boundaries with respect means recognizing that others have their own boundaries and respecting their needs as well. Healthy boundaries are reciprocal. They create a space where both parties can thrive without feeling taken advantage of or overwhelmed. In a world that often values strength, independence, and self-sufficiency, vulnerability is a concept that many people shy away from. Vulnerability is typically seen as a weakness, a crack in the armor that protects us from the judgment and criticism of others. However, the truth is that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, it is a profound strength. It is the cornerstone of true connection, deep emotional intimacy, and growth. But vulnerability cannot exist without trust. The two go hand in hand. To be vulnerable is to trust, and to trust is to be vulnerable. Together, they form the foundation of meaningful relationships, both with others and with ourselves. Vulnerability is about being open, exposed, and authentic. It is the act of allowing ourselves to be seen for who we truly are, with all our imperfections, flaws, and fears. It means showing up in the world without the protective armor that we so often wear to guard ourselves from pain, rejection, or judgment. In many ways, vulnerability requires a willingness to take risks. It is about sharing our thoughts, emotions, and experiences in ways that make us feel exposed and, yes, sometimes uncomfortable. But vulnerability is also what enables us to build real, deep, and lasting connections with others. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we open the door for genuine emotional exchange. We stop hiding behind facades or masks and instead present ourselves as we truly are, warts and all. It's in this authenticity that we invite others to do the same. Vulnerability creates a space where honesty can flourish and where real communication can happen. It's the courage to be imperfect and to share those imperfections with the world without the fear of being judged. One of the greatest gifts of vulnerability is its ability to foster connection. In a world where many people feel isolated, disconnected, and misunderstood, vulnerability offers a path to real intimacy. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we create opportunities for others to see and understand us in ways that go beyond superficial interactions. It is only when we show our true selves without pretense that we can create bonds that are meaningful and enduring. But connection does not happen automatically. Vulnerability requires trust, the belief that the other person will not take advantage of our openness, that they will not exploit our raw honesty. Trust is the glue that holds vulnerability together. Without trust, vulnerability can feel dangerous, risky, and even harmful. Trust allows us to expose ourselves emotionally without fear of being ridiculed or betrayed. It is a mutual understanding that when we open up to one another, we will be met with empathy, respect, and care. Trust is the foundation on which vulnerability rests. It is the belief that the other person has our best interests at heart, that they will honor our feelings and treat our vulnerabilities with care. Trust is earned over time through consistent actions, not just words. When someone shows up for us, listens to us without judgment, and keeps their promises, trust is built. Trust allows us to lower our defenses and reveal the parts of ourselves that we often keep hidden, knowing that they will be respected and not used against us. Without trust, vulnerability can feel like a dangerous gamble. If we do not trust others, opening ourselves up to them can lead to pain, rejection, and betrayal. It is because of this fear that many people keep their walls high and their emotions guarded. But the truth is, vulnerability and trust are interdependent. Without vulnerability, there can be no deep trust, and without trust, there can be no authentic vulnerability. Vulnerability is not without its risks. It requires courage to open ourselves up to the possibility of rejection, misunderstanding, or emotional hurt. When we expose our inner selves, we make ourselves susceptible to the reactions of others. This can be especially difficult if we have been hurt in the past or if we have experienced betrayal. The fear of being vulnerable can often be paralyzing, leading us to hold back and keep parts of ourselves hidden. But here's the thing, vulnerability is also where we find the greatest rewards. It is in vulnerability that we experience the richness of human connection. When we allow ourselves to be seen and heard, we open the door to intimacy, understanding, and love. Vulnerability deepens relationships in a way that surface-level interactions never can. It creates space for empathy, compassion, and emotional bonding. Through vulnerability, we come to know others in a way that transcends the superficialities of daily life. Furthermore, vulnerability allows us to grow and evolve. When we are open to being vulnerable, we are also open to learning from our experiences and our mistakes. Vulnerability is often the starting point for personal transformation. It is through vulnerability that we can begin to heal, to shed old patterns of fear and shame, and to step into a more authentic version of ourselves. It is only by embracing our imperfections and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable that we can move forward with resilience and strength. While vulnerability is a deeply personal experience, it also plays a significant role in building trust with others. To trust someone is to believe that they will hold our vulnerabilities with care, that they will treat our emotions with respect, and that they will not use our openness against us. But trust is not a one-time event. It is built over time through consistent actions and shared experiences. Every time we open up to someone and they respond with empathy, understanding, and kindness, trust is strengthened. And with every act of trust, vulnerability becomes easier as we learn that our openness can be met with acceptance and love. Vulnerability and trust are not static, they are dynamic and evolving. At times, one may feel more vulnerable than the other, and at other times, trust may feel shaky. But the key to navigating this dance is understanding that both are necessary for true emotional connection. Vulnerability allows us to be seen, while trust ensures that our vulnerabilities are respected. In the intersection of these two elements, we find the potential for deep, meaningful relationships that are built on honesty, respect, and mutual care. In today's digital age, we are more connected than ever before. We have instant access to our friends, family, and even strangers across the globe. Social media, texting, and video calls make it easier to stay in touch and share our lives. Yet, despite this unprecedented access to one another, many people report feeling lonelier than ever. The irony is striking. How can we be more connected than ever and yet feel more isolated? The answer lies in the distinction between true connection and the illusion of connection. The proliferation of social media has transformed the way we interact with others. With a few taps or clicks, we can share our thoughts, photos, and experiences with hundreds, if not thousands, of people. But the connections that exist on these platforms are often shallow, fleeting, and carefully curated. People post the best versions of themselves, the moments they want others to see, and the life they wish to portray. It is not a reflection of their authentic selves, but rather a highlight reel that serves to impress rather than connect. In this space, we may have hundreds or even thousands of friends or followers, but how many of those relationships are truly meaningful? How many of those connections are based on shared experiences, vulnerability, and trust? The truth is that many of these online connections are merely a facade and illusion of connection that masks the deeper truth of emotional isolation. We may spend hours scrolling through the lives of others, liking photos and commenting on posts, but these interactions often lack depth. They don't foster real understanding, empathy, or a true sense of being seen. The constant barrage of images, statuses, and updates can leave us feeling more disconnected and inadequate as we compare our behind-the-scenes lives to the curated versions of others' lives. Instead of nurturing connection, social media often leaves us feeling empty and longing for something more substantial. True connection is built on vulnerability, empathy, and a willingness to be seen in all our complexities. It involves showing up as we are, without the filters, without the fear of judgment, and without the need to impress. True connection requires us to listen deeply, to engage with others, not just on a surface level, but with intention and care. It is the act of being present, of offering our full attention and understanding to another person, and of allowing them to do the same for us. However, in a world that increasingly values speed and convenience over depth, the art of meaningful connection is being lost. We can shoot off a quick text or like a post, but these interactions don't provide the emotional nourishment that we need as human beings. At the end of the day, we need more than just a digital connection. We need authentic relationships with real emotional intimacy, where we feel safe to be vulnerable and truly ourselves. One of the key factors that contributes to the illusion of connection is our collective fear of vulnerability. To truly connect with others, we must allow ourselves to be seen. We must let go of the masks that we wear to protect ourselves from rejection or judgment. But vulnerability is often met with fear and resistance. We live in a culture that prizes strength and self-sufficiency, where showing weakness or uncertainty can be perceived as a flaw. We are told to tough it out or keep it together. And in doing so, we shut down the very qualities that enable authentic connection. When we fear vulnerability, we choose to protect ourselves by keeping our true selves hidden behind walls. We present an image of who we want to be rather than who we truly are. We share the highlights of our lives, but not the struggles, the pain, or the doubts. This creates a false sense of connection, one that is based on an idealized version of ourselves rather than the real, messy, beautiful human beings that we are. True connection requires the courage to be vulnerable, to share our fears, flaws, and imperfections, and to invite others to do the same. It's in this mutual vulnerability that real intimacy is born. The paradox of social media is that it allows us to feel connected without actually connecting. We see snippets of others' lives, we engage with their posts, and we feel as if we know them. But this virtual connection lacks the depth and richness that face-to-face interaction brings. Online interactions are often brief, transactional, and driven by the need for validation rather than genuine connection. When we scroll through our feeds, we may feel a temporary sense of closeness with others, but this often fades when we put our phones down. The dopamine hits we get from likes, comments, and shares create a momentary sense of connection, but they don't sustain us in the long run. The human need for deep emotional connection goes beyond the fleeting validation that social media offers. Furthermore, social media can create a distorted sense of reality. We see others living seemingly perfect lives, achieving success, traveling to exotic locations, or enjoying flawless relationships. This creates a sense of comparison that leaves us feeling inadequate or unfulfilled. Instead of feeling connected to others, we often feel isolated, as if everyone else is living a life that is better than our own. This illusion of connection, built on comparison and curated portrayals of life, only deepens our sense of loneliness. To move beyond the illusion of connection, we must prioritize real presence with others. Presence means being fully engaged in the moment without distractions or the need to impress. It means giving our full attention to the people we care about, listening deeply, and sharing authentically. True connection is found in the quality of our interactions, not the quantity. It is not about how many friends we have or how many likes we receive. It is about the depth of our relationships and the emotional intimacy we create with those who matter most to us. Building authentic connections requires time, effort, and a willingness to be vulnerable. It requires us to step away from the digital world and engage in face-to-face conversations where we can truly see and hear each other. It is in these moments that we experience the richness of connection, the shared laughter, the comforting silence, the deep conversations that nourish our souls. The illusion of connection is a byproduct of a society that values quantity over quality. We live in an era where being constantly connected is seen as a measure of success, but this constant connection often leaves us more isolated than ever. In our pursuit of digital connection, we have lost sight of what truly matters: authentic, meaningful relationships that are based on mutual understanding, empathy, and vulnerability. True connection requires us to show up as our real selves, without the need for validation or perfection, and to embrace the messy, beautiful, and complicated parts of life. Emotional resilience is the ability to navigate through life's challenges with strength, grace, and adaptability. It's the capacity to bounce back from setbacks, face adversity head-on, and recover from difficult experiences without losing our sense of self. But emotional resilience is not something that happens by accident. It is something we cultivate and nurture over time. It is rooted in our ability to maintain self-respect, our inner belief in our worth, our values, and our ability to weather life's storms without compromising who we are. At the heart of emotional resilience lies the recognition that we cannot control everything in life, but we do have control over how we respond to it. Life will inevitably present challenges, whether it's loss, failure, criticism, or conflict, but it is our reaction to these challenges that defines our emotional resilience. By learning to protect our sense of self-respect in the face of adversity, we can build the strength needed to overcome life's inevitable obstacles. Emotional resilience is built on a foundation of emotional awareness and self-regulation. It begins with the understanding that our emotions are not inherently good or bad. They are simply signals that offer us insight into our needs, desires, and boundaries. When we experience emotions such as sadness, anger, fear, or frustration, these emotions are not signs of weakness or failure. Rather, they are part of the human experience. The key is not to suppress or avoid them, but to acknowledge and understand them. Building emotional resilience involves learning how to manage our emotional responses in healthy ways. This means recognizing when we are being overwhelmed by emotions and taking proactive steps to self-soothe and restore balance. Whether through mindfulness, meditation, physical exercise, journaling, or seeking support from others, resilient individuals know how to take care of themselves emotionally. They understand that emotions are temporary, and they don't define who they are. By cultivating emotional regulation skills, we can prevent ourselves from becoming consumed by our emotions, allowing us to respond to challenges with clarity and calmness. Self-respect plays a critical role in emotional resilience. It is the internal belief that we are worthy of love, care, and kindness, regardless of external circumstances. When we respect ourselves, we develop a sense of inner strength that protects us from the negative impacts of criticism, failure, or rejection. We are less likely to internalize external negativity because our sense of self-worth is not dependent on others' opinions of us. Self-respect helps us navigate difficult times with dignity. When we face challenges, whether personal or professional, having a foundation of self-respect allows us to view the situation objectively and make decisions that align with our values. We may face failure, but we don't allow it to define us. We may face criticism, but we don't allow it to shake our belief in our own worth. Self-respect ensures that regardless of the outcome, we stand firm in our values and our integrity. In times of adversity, those with a strong sense of self-respect are more likely to show compassion toward themselves. They know that it is okay to struggle, to feel vulnerable, and to make mistakes. They do not berate themselves for their human flaws, but instead, they offer themselves the same kindness and understanding they would offer a friend. This self-compassion fuels emotional resilience because it allows us to recover and keep moving forward after setbacks. Life is full of ups and downs, and emotional resilience is not about avoiding difficulty, it's about how we cope with it. Resilient individuals face adversity with a sense of perspective. They understand that difficult times, while painful, are not permanent. They may experience heartbreak, failure, or loss, but they recognize that these are temporary situations that will eventually pass. What matters is how they respond to these experiences. Instead of getting stuck in the pain or dwelling on what went wrong, emotionally resilient individuals are able to extract lessons from their struggles. They understand that failure is not a reflection of their worth, but a part of the learning process. They see adversity as an opportunity for growth, knowing that each challenge can teach them something new about themselves and the world around them. A critical aspect of emotional resilience is the ability to maintain hope. In times of difficulty, resilient people do not lose sight of their goals or dreams. They keep moving forward, even when the path ahead seems uncertain. They understand that progress is not always linear, but through persistence and determination, they will find their way through the storm. Self-respect is closely tied to our ability to establish and maintain healthy boundaries. Boundaries are the lines we draw to protect our emotional and mental well-being. They are essential in preserving our energy, protecting our self-esteem, and ensuring that we do not overextend ourselves. Emotional resilience requires us to know when to say no, when to take a step back, and when to prioritize our needs over the demands of others. Without boundaries, we risk becoming overwhelmed, drained, and resentful. We may allow others to take more from us than we have to give, or we may neglect our own needs in favor of others' expectations. Emotional resilience is not about being able to handle everything. It is about knowing what we can handle and having the strength to set limits where necessary. Boundaries allow us to maintain our sense of self in the face of external pressures. They ensure that we have the space and energy to recover from difficult situations and to nurture our emotional well-being. By establishing clear boundaries, we are taking control of our emotional lives, preserving our energy, and preventing burnout. Emotional resilience is not a trait that we either have or don't have. It is a skill that we can develop and strengthen over time. Building resilience requires consistent effort and self-awareness. It involves learning how to respond to difficult emotions in healthy ways, cultivating self-respect, and taking proactive steps to care for our mental and emotional health. Over time, resilient individuals become more comfortable with discomfort. They learn to trust themselves and their ability to navigate through life's challenges. They understand that setbacks are not failures, but opportunities to learn and grow. They also understand the importance of seeking support from others when needed, whether through friends, family, or professional help. As we cultivate emotional resilience, we also strengthen our capacity for self-respect. When we honor our emotions, respect our boundaries, and respond to life's challenges with grace, we reinforce the belief that we are worthy of love, care, and compassion. This self-respect then becomes the bedrock on which our emotional resilience is built, allowing us to face life's difficulties with confidence and strength. In the end, emotional resilience and self-respect are not just abstract concepts, but essential pillars for navigating the complexities of life. While adversity and challenges are inevitable, our ability to respond with resilience is what determines the strength of our character. By nurturing our emotional resilience, we not only enhance our ability to bounce back from setbacks, but also build a deeper sense of self-respect that empowers us to stay true to who we are, regardless of external circumstances. True connection, whether with others or with ourselves, can only be achieved when we embrace vulnerability and authenticity. It is in the spaces of emotional honesty and mutual respect that meaningful relationships are formed and real growth occurs. As we learn to honor our emotions, set healthy boundaries, and maintain self-compassion, we are not just surviving, but thriving, creating lives that are rich with purpose, understanding, and joy. As we continue to face the inevitable ups and downs of life, let us remember that emotional resilience is a skill that grows with time and practice, and that self-respect is the foundation upon which all other strengths are built. By embracing both, we can meet life's challenges with confidence, knowing that no matter what comes our way, we have the capacity to remain rooted in our worth and rise stronger each time.